Okay, great.
Hi there, Lisa Nutt here with the Tucson Association of Realtors for our latest episode of Engage You. And I, of course, am joined by our Director of Government Affairs, Sean Cody. And today we have Pima County Assessor Suzanne Droubie joining us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you. It took a little bit to get you in here.
Yes, I'm very busy.
We all are,
Yeah.
And so tell us, in those busy times, what does a typical day look like for the county assessor in Pima County?
All right. Well, a typical day in my office obviously begins with a cup of coffee, very strong in most cases. And then it's a lot of pulling in data, researching data, going through sales and valuing properties, contacting businesses, going over business personal property reports, qualifying people for exemptions, and doing, sending out, getting ready to, on a normal day, send out notices. We kind of prepare all year long for this one big event, which is sending out the property notices.
At the beginning of the year, right?
Yes, usually right around sometime in February. So anytime after the 1st of January, before March 1st, those notices go out. And that is kind of the biggest part of what
everything
we're doing
points
there.
to that.
Yes, everything points to that. So getting things on the roll, making sure that everything's correct and that we have everything listed correctly. That's basically our day and what it consists of.
And so, and then you'll send those notices, right? And then you're in your busy season.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, the appeal season,
Right.
once that goes out, we have an appeal period where if you don't think something's right on that notice that you receive, you have 60 days to file an appeal. Usually that would start with a phone call to our office. We will help you through that appeal process. We encourage people to appeal if they have a question. It's definitely not an adversarial process at all. Our goal in the office is to make sure that we get everything correct. We don't need to be right, but we need to get it right. And so the appeal process to me is a way for property owners to actually get involved in this process by helping us make sure that everything is correct. And they do that by calling us and bringing it to our attention. Hey, something's going on here that you're not aware of, that you need to be aware of, or this isn't correct and we need to get it correct. So the public, my philosophy is that this is a team effort and everybody needs to be involved so that we can be as accurate as possible to make sure that we're treating everybody as equitably as we possibly can and nobody's paying more than their fair share of taxes. Everybody has to pay taxes. I pay taxes. Nobody likes to pay taxes, right? But we all have to do it. And so part of my job is making sure that you're not paying any more or any less than you need to pay, by making sure everything is fair, equitable, and that we're extremely transparent as to the process and what is happening.
Right.
So
Great. Good.
I assume as valuations and taxes increase, the number of appeals increases as well, or no?
Usually when the market takes a dive, back in 2008 when the market crashed, the bubble burst, the market crashed, it was
A hard,
catastrophic for
Right.
across the industry, and the assessor's office was no different. That makes life a lot more difficult on our end because yes, at that point in time, even if we are reflecting that downturn in the market in our valuation, obviously everybody's in panic mode. We're always a little bit behind.
Right.
And because of that, we do get a lot of appeals. Back in 2008, it was not uncommon for us to have 10 to 12,000 appeals, residential, commercial, and land across the board because everything just went way, way down as far as valuation's concerned. But now that, when the market's going up really fast, like we've been seeing, we tend to get a lot less appeals. So now we average anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 appeals a year, which makes it a little bit easier in our office in that respect, but it's also a really nice time for us because we're able to focus a lot more on making sure everything's correct and getting out there and doing those field checks to make sure that we're picking up anything that's not on the roll that should be, or getting things off that shouldn't be on there.
Sure.
So this is the time that we use to really clean up the rolls. But yes, if something's happening in that market in a negative aspect, my
You're
office,
definitely feeling
I'm
it.
the first one to hear about it. Yes. Did you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you aware?
Yeah. So
Painfully so.
yeah. So, and one of the other things too that I definitely need to say that we do on a daily basis is some of my extracurricular, I call it, stuff, things that I implemented when I took office that I'm really, really proud of. We engage with the public through outreach, through all of these beautiful pamphlets that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Getting information out into the public is huge for me. So that is another thing that we're doing, always identifying areas of outreach that have been neglected over the years that we really need to focus on and get out there and get that information into the public.
Yeah.
Your office is instrumental in doing that, and thank you so very much. You do an
this
amazing
is how
job.
this started, right? Because if we rewind,
Yeah.
it was at a home show some years ago now, and some months later we were going to do a housing fair again.
Yes.
And so we invited you to come present here at the association, and then we also had you participate in the housing fair, and that housing fair is now in its 5th year, and we have had a growing number of community members participate because we do it at the zoo on what's usually a beautiful day weather-wise in November. And so we've been able to then build on that initial contact, right, and that initial relationship to have you here today. And also we'll talk about how we work together on deed fraud too. So yeah, very good.
Yes, yeah, and we also do business services. It was really important to me that the business community was kind of brought into the fold. My opinion, and it is just my opinion,
Right.
is that our business community was neglected a little bit by the assessor's office. The main focus was always on residential, which is the majority. However, the business community is so vital to Pima County, and they needed the attention, and they needed something from the assessor's office that showed that we support the business community and that we also are very much in tune with what is happening with them and what they need, we feel, from a valuation aspect. And so we just developed business services in the office since I took office. And what we do is we do projections, and we help development services. We work with Sun Corridor, we work with the chambers on everything that has to do with new development or existing development. If somebody's going to buy a commercial property, as we know, property taxes are a huge expense in the business world. And we don't want any surprises for a new business owner, for a seasoned business owner, for a developer. We want to make sure that they understand that this is what this expense is going to look like. So we'll do a 5-year projection. We can pull them out longer than that. Obviously, the further out you go, the less accurate, reliable they are. But still, it gives the business community a really good picture. And it's good for location, for site selection too. Because it's like, what are the taxes if I build over here versus what are the taxes if I build over here? Because a lot of times if they've got 2 sites that they're looking at very actively, that can be the deciding factor. And as we know in Pima County, even though the primary rate is the same everywhere, those secondary rates can make a huge difference. And so that's one of the things we walk our business community through. I have one of well, I'm going to take a moment here. Try not to cry.
Ah.
My girl,
Mhm.
Adriana Castro, 40 under 40, and she runs my business services.
Nice.
And wow, she
Yeah.
is amazing.
Mhm.
And so anybody in the business community, and a lot of people already know who she is because she's helped. But that is one of the things we're really, really proud of in our office is the business services.
And so I want so those comments also triggered a thought that we now have a new state law in terms of adaptive reuse for commercial properties.
Mm-hmm.
So, because your office also is involved if the use of a property has changed or is looking to be changed, because
Mhm.
there are often tax implications and valuation implications as
Definitely.
well, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. In our office, if a use significantly changes,
Mhm.
it can have an effect on the limited value depending on what that change in use is.
Mhm.
And so the limited is it's a process that is set by statute.
Mhm.
When,
Is that uniquely Arizona, by the way?
yes,
Okay.
as far as I know, it's
Right, as far
uniquely
as I know,
Arizona.
too.
Yeah. I mean, other states have limited property values. They have
Mhm.
2 values. That's not anything that's unique to Arizona.
Okay.
However, how they're calculated is
Right.
different
Okay.
depending on what state you're in.
Mhm.
Some states use caps where they will cap how high or how much a valuation can increase
Mhm.
regardless of what the market's doing.
Mhm.
Some have caps on what your taxes can do.
Mhm.
And so it's different
State to state.
state to state on how that works. In
Yeah.
Arizona, we have a limited value that is set at what I call the birth of a property.
Mhm.
So if you have a piece of land and all of a sudden you put a building on it,
Mhm.
okay, so it becomes a new property in our eyes because of that addition of
It
improvements.
changed its nature.
Yes, it's
Mhm.
changed its use. It went from vacant land to now a commercial piece of property with an improvement on it.
Mhm.
And what we need to do at that point in time is establish not only the full cash value, which is determined by market,
Mhm.
but we also need to determine that limited value, which is the value that they use to calculate all the taxes.
Right.
Okay, full cash value can do whatever the market does, and it does do whatever the market does. That's the statute.
Mhm.
Limited value can only increase 5%
Mhm.
every year unless there's a significant change in use or a significant change to the building. Like we put an addition on there, we demolish something.
Mhm.
It goes from being utilized as a single family residence on Broadway
Mhm.
to an insurance agency
Mhm.
on Broadway.
Mhm.
That's a change in use.
Right.
Then what we need to do is reset that limited value because of that change. And it is set base, if it's going from a residential house to an insurance company,
Mhm.
a commercial property, what we would do then is basically look at all the commercial properties and from there look at what all of their limited values are, come up with the ratio between the limited and the full cash value and set the new limited accordingly.
Mhm.
So for instance, an example like on a commercial reset valuation for the limited, it's going to be somewhere around 80% right now. Vacant land is down at 60% So every property type has its own ratio.
Sure. Mhm.
But anytime a change happens, yes, then
Yeah.
we go in and we reset that. Sometimes that can be amazingly
Favorable.
and sometimes not so much.
Not so much.
So
Right.
yeah, so it all depends.
And similarly to what realtors do in terms of comparables, right? Because
Mhm.
it is about finding comparables and as close to comparable as you can get,
Yes.
because some buildings and uses are very unique, but your office also works and strives to find that comparability in order to inject what I call objectivity within things that are very subjective.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So whether it's adaptive reuse or other similar public policies
Mm-hmm.
from the board, or even if a department is considering it, given the tax implications, do they reach out to you for feedback when they're developing these policies?
It's kind of a loaded question.
Now that I
We
asked
didn't
you
mean to
that,
Let me just
load
let
it.
you know. Let me start that by saying that I very much enjoy the company of and respect everybody on that board. They're wonderful, wonderful. Do they always consult me? No. Typically they will do something and a taxpayer will contact them and then they will definitely consult me. Because at that point it's Sue,
We've got a question now.
yeah. And so, yes, and a lot of what they do obviously drives the tax rate, which does affect it. My lane is valuation, and so I do try to very much stay in my lane of valuation and stay away from taxes. They do very much enjoy, and I'm sure they, especially Rex Scott, who you just had with you, and snicker a little bit when they pull me into their lane and I have to start talking about taxes.
Yeah.
And so, yes, what they do does affect. Do they always call me right away? No. I think though, again, as more information gets out there and that's
or a
more of that
policy
will
gets
happen.
implemented, right?
Yeah,
Because
Yes.
it can be hard to understand, right? Or game it out to understand all of the implications or consequences, right? So until you execute, then it becomes, oh, well, we hadn't thought about that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're very good at what they do. And so am I. And so, yeah.
So when you work together, a better solution emerges, I'm
Yes.
sure.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
And because valuations are your lane,
Mhm.
I know, and so in full disclosure, I am a member of the State of Arizona Board of Equalization. We are the body that reviews property valuations after the appeals process has run its course. That's a different conversation. But what I know is that you do have a process. You recently changed the tools you use to make conduct your valuations, right, or determine your valuations. Walk us through that a little bit.
Okay. There's three main methodologies for valuing properties: income, cost, and market.
Yes.
Market is what it suggests. We gather all of the sales and we look at the data, and from there we determine the value of like properties, much like what a real estate agent would do when you call them to give a value on your house. They look at what's sold in the area, what looks like their listing, and then they come up with what they believe is going to be the most probable sale price. That's exactly what we do, to just on a much larger scale. Okay.
With how many hundreds of thousands of properties?
We have over 430,000 properties in Pima County, and so we're responsible for putting a value on those every single year. Some states do it every other year. Some states do it every 5 years. Here in Arizona, we do it every single year. So we have a lot of tools to help us get that done and get it done fairly and accurately. We get from the recorder's office a copy of the sales affidavit that you fill out at your closing. We get a copy of every single one of those sent to us in a nightly transmission, and we go through all of those sales and we validate them. So to make sure that they're accurate, they all go into a database. And if they're determined to be an arm's length transaction, and then from there, we have a CAMA modeling system, and the CAMA modeling system will go through and help us value all of the properties on a very, very large mass scale. And then what we do is we do quality control and do checks on all of those to ensure that it is accurate. And that's, for the most part, how a residential property is done. There are businesses like your strip malls where they rent out those units, and those are valued on an income basis, and those are typically done by hand. We either do a pro forma income on them, or we will get income information directly, and we take that income information and we do figure out the net operating income through the whole thing. It's a lot more complicated than I just made it. And that will help us. And then we take that along with market information and use that to value those income producing type properties.
Because you have appraisers on your staff.
I have many appraisers.
whose role
Mhm.
is to compile, analyze, and create those determinations.
Yes, yes. And I also have a market expert now on staff where his job is strictly to just research the market, and then compile information for our appraisers that will help them when it comes to valuing those properties more accurately and more fairly. So that's income and market, and then the one that has undergone the big transformation in our office is the cost system.
Sure.
In the past, because Pima County is unique in that we have our own IT staff, and our IT staff comes up and does all of our programming, creates all of our report systems. Everything that we do in the assessor's office is created by my IT team. They're amazing. And in the past, they would compile data and use variations of different models out there, and the previous assessor had his own cost system. And so when I came on board, they were in the process of switching that cost system over. And so I picked up that ball and took it forward, and now we are aligned with every other county across the United States.
Right.
We use the Marshall Swift system. It's a nationally recognized cost system. They compile data. That is their job. That is all they do. And so our cost numbers now are even more objective, because we don't do them. And in my opinion, much more accurate, much more consistent. So I'm very happy with the change that we made to the new cost system in our office. The transition, I will say, it's a huge undertaking, and for what it was, that transition was very smooth. Now this is the first year that it's in place,
right?
And so the proof is in the pudding, and we will see how smoothly it went when we do the state board hearings. But I will say that there was not a lot of appeals that were filed.
Well, because that would maybe be the first place.
That's
you
an
would
indication,
see it, right?
Yes, we would. Everybody would be like, "Oh no, you know,
this is so wrong."
Yes, and we're not seeing that.
Okay.
Now we do have some that are, that have been appealed that were valued on cost. So we'll see how that turns out, and we're having discussions with those agents to sit down and really look at what we're doing to make sure that it is correct.
Right.
So, and if we find any errors, we will correct them and make sure that everybody is anything that was valued on cost, that went out on cost, and that value is used to determine your property taxes.
Right.
We will make sure that all of that, if we come up with an error, which we have not found yet, fingers crossed we don't, they will all be corrected and taken care of. So, yeah.
Great.
I'm just thinking, given all the technological advancements, that your office probably has benefited more than a lot of others.
Yeah.
Just given whether it's AI or modeling, right? All that's improving at such a drastic rate that.
Yeah.
But also a challenge then for your office to keep up with it all.
Yeah. That has always been one of the struggles. In the past, not so much, but oh my gosh, it's technology has advanced so rapidly, and it's not slowing down. It's, if anything, it's moving even faster, and trying to stay ahead of that's always been a challenge. We still do a lot of things in our office human. Better way to explain that.
Because I was just even thinking about, because I had the benefit, right, of attending a session where the technology on the cost approach was demonstrated, and even though it's a national system, a database, a really robust database, it requires and provides for human intervention, right? Which is also what we're talking about if we're talking about AI, right? Like, yes, put it through AI and make sure a human goes through to make sure that it is correct, it is accurate, it's reliable. Yeah.
The assessor's office on my watch will never go strictly automated. Absolutely not. There always has to be
desktop appraisals.
No desktop appraisals. There's always going to be the human factor. Like I said, we use technology as a tool to help us,
Mhm.
but then we always do quality control. We physically, I don't do drones. We don't have drones flying over people's houses.
Okay.
We drive out there in our very well marked vehicles and say, hey, we need to remeasure your house, or we need to do this, but that's all physically done. We have people that drive around and take the photos. We don't hire a company
You don't
to go
rely on
around.
Google Earth.
No Google Earth. We use it as a tool.
Yeah.
Because that's how I look at technology, especially when it comes to AI or Google or any of this stuff. We utilize them as tools. They're tools in our toolbox to help us be more accurate and more fair, but you're always going to have that human factor. When you call my office, you're talking to a person that's sitting there behind the desk. When you come in there, you're gonna get that human interaction, that customer service. That is what I ran on, customer service. And you're gonna find that in the assessor's office. That is one thing I'm very, very proud of. People come in there, they can be and after dealing with my customer service staff, they leave with a smile on their face. They pick up that phone, they call and they say, hey Sue, customer service there is top notch. Your people walked me through this and held my hand and really, really took the time to explain it to me. The people that I have in my office, they know what customer service is, and we live it every single day. And so it's just, as far as that warmth needs to stay there. This is government. Government is about service, serving the people. That's what we do, and you can't do that with AI or a robot or
Or certainly not as effectively, right?
Absolutely.
And oftentimes it is just that time needed to walk through, to see for yourself. We're basing it on this information from here, right? Because oftentimes it feels mysterious, right?
Yeah.
And so just demystifying it, making it digestible in order to then understand what the conclusion is. One issue we're seeing in our world, and I'm not sure how it may be showing up in your world or affecting your interactions with the public even, is insurance and what has been happening with insurance. We did a panel discussion a year ago on the rising premiums, and now we know people are losing coverage, or their coverage is becoming exponentially expensive. Not just a small increment, but sometimes it's increasing 3 and 4 times what they've normally been paying. Is there a connection to valuation and insurance?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Okay.
Because it's also impacting affordability.
Yes.
In our world.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
And so affordability is already an issue, and now we're contending with how insurance has become a factor.
Yeah. Property taxes and insurance are all part of that escrow.
Yes.
Right? That you're paying on top of your mortgage, right? And to be honest with you, the escrow is what never goes away, right? Your mortgage, you can pay that off, but you're always going to pay that insurance, and you're always going to pay those property taxes. It's just part of living in a community and, helping to make sure those
commitment and responsibility of home ownership.
Exactly.
Or property ownership,
yeah,
right?
You want your roads paved.
Yes.
And I'm not going to get into roads that much, but the roads.
I was going to say, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
Not my job. But the roads, the schools, the fire departments,
public services.
Yes, exactly. All of that stuff gets paid through property tax.
Right.
And so you will always pay property taxes, whether you agree with it or not. That's just going to happen. So I'm sorry. But how it all kind of ties together is we value based on the market and based on sales. We collect all the sales data, and that's how we value. If insurance prices are going up and things like that, then yes, affordability is going to go down because your escrow payment is going to be higher. And if that escrow payment is higher, it is going to affect how much of a mortgage you can afford, because it's kind of a package deal, right? So insurance companies look to us to kind of, in a couple of different ways. The insurance company has to put a value on that property too, because they need to know what is it going to cost us to rebuild that property if something happens.
Or repair it.
Yeah, or repair it. And so they look to us not necessarily to get their value, but to kind of confirm what they are doing. They call our office all the time. They call business services. That's their contact. And they're like, hey, what do you guys have this valued at? What is going on? Da 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 da. Or I'm looking at this number here. You've got this number here. Where are we disconnecting here? And so that's how insurance companies kind of utilize our office. As far as what they're doing on their end, as far as their prices and how that affects is definitely affordability, but that's reflected in the sales data that we're collecting. So can I say definitively that a rise in insurance is going to affect the market to a point where people are going to really, really notice it? Not really. I can't say that definitively.
Or hard to say right now.
Exactly.
Right?
It's we're historians in the assessor's office, and so we kind of wait when this stuff happens to see what it does do in the sales, and we analyze the sales, and then we can come back and say, yes, this did have an impact along with this, and this, because there's typically never just one factor that's going to influence those values, right? There's a lot of different things. They're building a new school over here, so your secondary taxes are going up, or we've annexed this in here and you're no longer paying, privately for your fire department. It's now part of your taxes. So
there's a reduction.
Right. And so different things happen that affect that secondary. The primary rates is what it is. It's utilized to pay off the budget that the county spends every year. The secondary taxes, you vote on bonds, you vote, that's kind of
different initiatives.
It's need and taxpayer driven, to be honest with you. And the insurance kind of works into all of that. And so the effect on value is one of those things where I say it remains to be seen. And we'll let you know.
Right, because you already said there's a lag baked into your data.
Yes.
Right? Because you have to wait for those sales to close, right? For those transactions to take place. Your information or your valuations are always going to be just a bit behind what the market is reflecting.
Yeah. Can I do my favorite?
Please.
It's a roller.
I meant it as a softball.
Okay. It's a roller coaster, right?
Yes.
And the assessor's, you've heard this before. The assessor's office is the last car and the market is the first car. So when the market's going up, and you're watching your value up here, like over the last couple of years, we're still down here. And in this part of the market, because we use the last 2 years of sales. Right now, we are in the appeal season for 2026, not 2025, even though we're sitting in 2025. So what we're doing, these are going to be taxes that you're going to pay in year 2026. And you're not going to pay the first half till October. So we're always a little bit behind. But then also the market starts doing this. We're still up here. Market's down here because we're behind by 2 years or so. And we definitely try to catch up a heck of a lot faster when we're going downhill than when we're going uphill. Nobody's mad at me. Yeah. Nobody's
valuation.
Hurry up and bring my value up. No, that doesn't happen. But when it's going this way, I tell you what, people are out there going, come on, Sue, let's get on this. And we do. And we also will utilize the appeal season during those times, which is why you get 10, 12,000 appeals during those times to try to catch up a little bit faster and correct. And so, but it is always the roller coaster no matter what. And we can try to deploy little tricks that we have to try to catch up faster in a declining market. I never employ those tricks to try to catch up in an increasing market because I pay taxes too. And so we go ahead and let that one naturally happen. But when it's going down, I tell you what, my office is on top of it as much as we possibly can be.
Good to know.
Right.
You mentioned the 2-year lag though.
Yes.
It's typically 2 years?
Market wise, I would say yes. And the reason is because the date of valuation, we'll just take 2025 for instance. Okay. The date of valuation is January 1st. But remember, we're historians. And so the data that we've collected to get to that value on January 1st of 2025, which is your 2026 taxes, is from 23 and 24, right? Okay, so it's about 2 years behind the date of valuation. That's the data we're using to determine the values. But then by the time it gets to 2026 and you're paying the taxes on those, you're paying taxes on values that were determined using data from 23 and 24.
And that may or may no longer be present in the market.
Correct.
Right, because
Yep.
in our area, we've enjoyed a robust market, strong demand, right? Inventory has now gotten to what levels were in 2015. Because in addition to interest rates, we had tight inventory, really tight inventory. In fact, historically low inventory in 2022 with only 1,200 resale homes available on the market versus 11,000 in 2011, for example, right? So, so it's easing up, and so the market is reflecting the additional inventory. Buyers have time now that they didn't have in 2022 and 2023,
Yes.
for example.
Yeah, definitely. Interest rates, I would say, in our world are very impactful because the interest rates really have an effect on affordability.
Sure.
To be honest with you, more so than insurance, more so than property taxes, more so than anything, when it comes time to buy, the rates are really having a huge impact, right? And so that is, like I said, one of the things in my office with bringing on my market specialist. One of the things that we're keeping a really close eye on is what are they doing with those rates? What are they, predicting? And while I'm a historian, I love economics, and I'm a bit of a nerd that way. So I do really pay attention and really get into that. And so I try to take what knowledge I have there and listen to my experts. I always listen to my experts. And we blend what the sales are versus what is predicted to happen in the short future.
Right.
If I know those interest rates are predicted to drop back down to, let's say, 4%, I know what's going to happen, right? All of a sudden, everybody can afford more. And so they're going out there.
And that existing inventory might disappear quite quickly.
Exactly, right? And then we're back into a seller's market again, and those values are going to go up. So I might react differently when I'm saying, okay, this is the adjustment we need to make this year based on the sales and what we know is going to happen. Conversely, if that interest rate, if I know it's going to stay
6-7%
exactly up there, then I know my values are going to stay pretty stable. It takes something pretty catastrophic to happen to make them really take a dive, but they do level out. So I might say, okay, we're going to be really conservative right now on what we're going to do with those values, because with interest rates and politics come into it, elections come into it.
And the broader economic scenario, right?
Right.
The certainty or lack thereof that may be present at any moment in time.
Yes, and I'm always going to err on the side of the taxpayer, to be honest with you. That's just what I do. Yes, yeah. So.
Taxpayers rejoice.
Yes, yeah.
Another way that taxpayers might be able to rejoice is on the deed fraud front.
Yes. Yeah.
Mentioned that we have been able to collaborate for several years now on deed fraud. I'm always very happy to talk about that journey. The Arizona Department of Real Estate now requires that all licensees take a class in deed fraud.
Nice.
And so I have lots of stories to tell in that class, including the fact that your office and you were a stakeholder in our stakeholder meetings. Your office and you truly took an interest in understanding the issue from the various perspectives and vantage points, and made changes in your office.
Yeah.
Share some of those changes with us.
Deed fraud is, to me, one of the most devastating forms of fraud we have out there right now. And the reason is because it affects
where someone
your-
lives,
your-
right? Or their
your-
generational wealth.
your generational wealth, your largest
legacy,
asset.
Your largest asset.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so, and then let's add the additional layer on there that the primary victim of deed fraud, as with any fraud, is our elderly community. It just is. And the
Large
reason
part.
is because they paid off their mortgage.
Mm.
And the less professionals we can have involved in any type of fraud situation, the easier it is to commit fraud,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you don't have a bank looking at things, you don't, you know what I mean?
Sure,
And
yeah.
it makes it easier,
Mm-hmm.
right? Technology, love technology. And I do love technology,
Mhm.
but this is one of those cases where this is one of those double-edged swords, and this is also a repercussion of our advancing technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to represent yourself as something that you are not if you've got AI behind you, if you've got a computer that you can hide behind.
Editing software.
Oh yeah, you can now, you know, it used to be when you bought a property, you went to the state and you sat in front of a title agent,
Sure.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I can be sitting here in Arizona and I can buy a property online up in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever sit down in front of a person.
No wet signatures needed.
Nope. Or they send somebody to me and I sit in a restaurant and with a notary sitting across me
A mobile
who,
notary.
let's
Mhm.
face it, they know nothing about you know, some of them do. I
Right,
shouldn't say
yeah,
that, make
no.
that generalization, but
No.
most of the time they know nothing about real estate or this process, and it's not their job,
No,
you know. So
they're
they
witnessing a signature.
exactly
Mhm.
right, and so it's really become very easy to commit some of these crimes. Being in government, even as the assessor, where once it hits my office, it's already done, because
Right.
once something's been recorded, that's the
Penultimate step.
Yeah.
Right? Yours is the last.
it's the period at the end of the sentence
Yes.
is really that recorder's office.
Mhm.
That in the definition of transferring a sale that we learn in real estate is that once it's recorded, that's the end. It's done, right?
Yep.
In my office, because I'm charged with sending out that notice every year, that's statutorily what I have to do. I need to make sure that the address that it's going to is the owner of the property,
Mhm.
or that the address that they've designated to me, if it's different than the property, is the owner. Because that's what I have to do. Is I'm required to send a notice by March 1st every year to the owner of the property. So we're changing that address is what we're doing, and in the record, but the deal is already done. The moving van is in front of the house, so to speak. You know what I mean? They've got those keys.
Mhm.
Used to be a real estate agent.
Recordation is when we hand over
Yeah,
keys.
here you go, right?
Mhm.
Not when the assessor changes that
No,
address.
the database.
Right, so I
Mhm.
need to be clear on that. However, I'm an elected official, and part of my job is to do what I can do in my capacity to protect the community.
Yeah.
I take that very, very seriously. So I
Mhm.
do whatever I can in my office to try to keep this from happening. One of the places we recognized that was a weak spot was address changes, because we do have people call up and say, yes, this is my house, this is the address to this house, but I would like my notice to come to this address here for whatever reason.
Sure.
And so we're like, okay. And we used to just be like, okay, just fill this out and sign it and we'll change that address.
Take it at face value.
Right, exactly. You know, I love to be able to trust those tax
It's customer service.
Yes, it is. It's like, I'm not going to make this job any harder than
Right.
it has to be, right?
Mhm.
But we've been pushed into a situation where we are going to make this a little bit more difficult. And the reason is because bad actors make everything more difficult on everybody. And
Sure.
I hate that.
Yeah.
However, I still need to protect everybody out there. And the way to do that is to make that address change process a little more difficult. And maybe not necessarily difficult, as more legitimate.
Mhm.
I know, my people know, when we're changing that address, now that we've done everything we can to ensure that this person is who they say they are, and
Right.
that they have a right to the property that allows them to make this change, and that they're not the only one that has the right to make that change. The reason being is because a lot of times deed fraud can happen with family members.
Correct.
In fact,
Or caretakers.
before that used to be the main way. That was what we saw. We saw, little Joey and little Susie, don't like each other, and they both have been, they both have this property, and one thinks they should have it, the other thinks they should have it. All of a sudden, a quick claim deed is filed, with a fraudulent signature on there, and that happens all the time. That's what we used to see. Now, and we still see that. So now, one of the things we've also put in place, you need to have an ID. Driver's license, or a passport or something. We have various things that will qualify, but you have to have that. And then we also notarize it. So now we have a notary also involved. So we've got a notarized signature. We have forms of identification. You can still do it through the mail. However, we do make it more difficult, and we're trying to very much encourage people to either come to the office or do it online. If you come to the office, obviously we're doing all this stuff face to face across the counter. It takes 5 minutes. It's not super painful. Or we can come out to your house. So if you're a taxpayer and you're like, I don't want to go downtown. A lot of people don't like to drive downtown.
Parking downtown.
Oh yeah, it's terrible, right? And so I'm like, no problem. I have a staff of 150 people. We have a fleet that's available to us to do our jobs on a daily. That is my responsibility. I put one of my employees in there. We send them out to your house, and we do the process face to face right there in your house. So you don't even have to come down to the office. Okay. But we are going to still need that ID. We're going to, and the notary and all of that. If you do it online, because a lot of people like the convenience of being able to sit down in their, at their computer, and I don't want to go down to the office. I don't want you coming to my house.
Or it's 10 o'clock at night.
Right. Yeah. And I respect that. I get that. We teamed up with DocuSign, and they do the verification. So you're going to have to answer some questions, Hopefully you remember the car that you drove when you were in high school.
Right.
That was the one that came up for me, and I'm like, wait a minute, so you're gonna have
authentication.
Yes, how many addresses have you lived at? Well, and for some of us, that's an awful lot of addresses, and I think that's right. You know what I mean? But you're gonna answer
familiar.
Yeah, those security questions that most other people are not gonna know if they are not actually you. And then so they do that through DocuSign, and so we're pretty sure now that the people
more confident that what's being presented is from the legitimate property owner, right? Or someone who has the authority to request that change. And so it's a more reliable process and vetted in a way that it wasn't vetted before.
Exactly. Right. And then we take it one step further. And I have a very beautiful postcard that I send to the original address that says, hey, be aware, an address change for notifications from our office has, been requested, submitted. And if you did not do this, or you think that, something looks wrong, call my office. And I just do that.
How much time do you give somebody to respond to that?
As much time as they need. Basically, hopefully they respond to it right away. If they didn't,
if there is an issue, it would prompt them to get in touch right away.
Exactly. But if somebody is like, "Oh, I was going through my mail and I found this, a year ago," and we're still going to take action at the assessor's office. Yeah. So there is really no time limit on it. But yes, if you get mail from the assessor's office. And I know people get it because I get stopped and say, hey, I got a letter from you. If you get anything from my office, it's not junk mail. Right. I don't send.
It's an intentional communication.
Exactly. I do not send junk mail. So, and I don't sell your name. I don't sell your address. I don't do any of that. And so, I don't put a time limit on it, but please, I ask that everybody pays attention if they get something from me. Yeah.
Good to know. So just like when I got an email this morning, right, telling me that someone had accessed my Facebook account. and that if it was not me, right, to notify them.
Exactly.
It was me, so there was no concern. But similarly, title and escrow companies are doing the same thing, right? They're sending seller packets indicating that a transaction is under contract and you're the seller, asking them to verify. Because again, on a transaction, when professionals are involved, there's no less than half a dozen professionals involved. Agents representing the seller, the buyer, title and escrow, usually a lender, right? So all of us play a role in deed fraud. And of course, there's more work to do. Our audience has heard from me before. There's legislation still at a state level that we need to address, some at the national level. So it's still an issue for us. Everyone is doing their part. Different practices have come into play. We thank you for your collaboration on that. We look forward to more collaborations, so stay tuned.
Yeah, and I have to mention that our efforts at the Assessor's Office have been nationally recognized.
Great.
So yeah, we are receiving an award, a NACO award, which is the National Association of Counties, and we are very proud of that. So yeah, we take deed fraud very, very seriously.
Well, make sure you let us know when that award ceremony occurs, because we'd love to share in your celebration.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
So back to roads.
Yeah.
Okay, back to roads.
I'm kidding. You mentioned field checks and how you do them often. I assume you've seen some pretty unique areas of Pima County that most of us probably haven't seen. So do you have a little hidden gem of a neighborhood or area?
That's a hard one for me. Yeah. This is all of Pima County is.
You're not going to call out any one area.
I'm going to name a couple, but yes, I am going to say all of Pima County is a hidden gem for the rest of the nation. There's so much that happens in Tucson and Pima County at large that we need to shout it out there. You know, obviously I love Pima County. It's my home. I live up in Catalina, and you know, if you are a four-wheel drive enthusiast, you can head up that direction, do the backside up to Mount Lemon. Four-wheel drive, very good clearance. Vehicle. Yes, I don't want anybody. The assessor told me that you aren't doing it in
sedan.
Yeah, you're not doing it in your Prius, please. Yeah, if you got it like something with clear, that's a beautiful drive. Catalina in and of itself has a lot of, you know, obviously restaurants and local food and things like that. We've got we've got a lot of cute little niche stores up there. The mountains, I drive by those Catalina mountains every day on my way to work, and you know, and then Mount Lemon, that's my favorite hideaway, which for most people, but surprisingly, a lot of people have never made that drive. It shocks me, but it is gorgeous. And if you have relatives coming in, which we will from October, to April, get up to Mount Lemon. The cookie cabin is fabulous. Yes. The general store has fudge there. That's unbelievable.
And there's a new hotel.
The new hotel up there.
There's cabins.
Yes. And I know these are the normal that everybody says, but I also encourage everybody to take that drive to Ajo, especially
out west.
Yeah. If you're an art enthusiast, they've turned the Curly School into a huge art. It's kind of like it's a cross between a museum, craft store, but it's all local artists, and it's fabulous. And so I would say get out there. I love to drive down south. I do enjoy wine, and I go through Green Valley. Green Valley has so much to offer down there. There really is not an area. No, obviously we've got some beautiful, state parks. We've got beautiful Tohono Chul is another one. I love to just go there and just sit and enjoy. There's a lot of the barrios. I mean, the shops down there, 4th Avenue. Yeah, I could go
list
on.
goes on and on, yeah.
Yes, and I have a lot of relatives up in Minnesota,
Oh,
so
sure.
that's my thing.
Yeah,
It's
so
like,
you have
oh gosh.
to diversify your portfolio.
Yes, if they come down here multiple times, it's like, yeah, we've seen
Can't
the
go there
Desert
again.
Museum
Yeah.
now 5 times, Mom. Is there something else
Somewhere
to do?
else,
Yeah. So I do get around,
Mhm.
very much so.
Yeah.
But I would say as far as hidden gems, maybe Ajo, because I think a lot of it is a drive,
Sure.
you know, to get out there. But I think, you know, that in the, you know, the mission,
Sure.
the mission is amazing. You know, the fry bread
Mhm.
and it's, you know, so I would say those are all of Pima County is my favorite, but
Yeah.
those are some highlights.
That's great,
So
man.
yes, yeah.
Very good. Back to taxes.
Yeah.
A possible increase, right? That the Board of Supervisors talked about in terms of how did they phrase it? A maximum up to 3 cent increase to fund affordable housing, which of course is our interest in housing supply, and bringing to bear as many tools as we can to increase supply, because that will speak very directly to affordability. So how do valuations get impacted by a decision like that?
Values, again, like I said, it does affect affordability.
Mhm.
Obviously, property taxes go up, you know, affordability goes down.
And that's in the secondary piece, not the primary.
No, that would be,
Or is it in the primary?
I believe it's primary. Yeah,
Okay.
that's primary. Yeah, it's not a secondary tax. That is the Pima County tax rate that they're talking about there.
Mhm.
I don't believe they went fully in that direction. It's kind of a modified plan, so to speak, to address affordable housing. It's a huge issue.
Mhm.
But remember, that's the other thing too, when they're talking about increasing rates or throwing a large dollar amount at one particular thing, like affordable housing. Other things are happening, so we can't necessarily say that it is going to definitely increase your taxes because of that secondary tax that's sitting out there. You know, you might have a bond that's falling off and your taxes could go down.
Oh, sure.
You could have, you know, there's a lot of different factors, again, that go into the bottom line as to what you're going to pay in taxes. And two, that Supervisor Allen mentioned, and she's not wrong, we do need to take a look at the community and the impact some of these things are having on it, and what is the cost to that, and will an increase in taxes, how will they offset each other? Because if we increase our taxes by a little bit to deal with affordable housing, obviously latent costs of affordable housing and other things that are happening, auxiliary costs I should say, to that situation, will those costs be alleviated? Because we're paying for those, which will in turn lower our taxes in other ways. Does that make sense? Because we're doing a lot of stuff and a lot of things that sometimes fall on the shoulder of the property owner, sometimes fall on the shoulders of the city, it falls on the shoulder of the county.
Or the state.
Yeah, you know, buildings are getting broken into. As we've seen, tragically, I mean, gas stations are being blown up. It's putting our firefighters at risk. It's putting our police officers at risk. We have a lot of things going out there, and if people don't believe that we're paying for that, then they're under a huge misconception, because
Right,
we
or
are
just not paying attention.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're paying for it in other
One
ways.
way or another.
One way or another.
Mhm.
So would we rather keep paying for it and just have that problem continue to exist and not address it and pretend like it's not happening and pay for it that way? Or would we actually would we rather take and make a concentrated effort to do what we can to solve this problem over here by putting the money in over here? We can somewhat more control that dollar amount, in my opinion. I'm really getting into taxes when I don't want to. I'm not a supervisor.
Right, your lane is valuation.
Yep, I don't want to be a supervisor. Let's be very clear. But I do understand what they're doing there.
And the connection.
Right, yes. And as far as how it's going to affect your value, it will affect it by the sales, it'll be reflected there, and the affordability and all of everything together. And again, like I said, it's not ever just one factor that affects that value. It's multiple factors that affect it. Is that one of them? Of course it is. But it's not the only one. So what impact that will have necessarily, we won't know until we get that property tax bill. Or your notice of value.
You want to talk about Pima Prospers?
Sure. So we're in the middle of updating Pima County's comp plan. I think it's getting down to the end. So I'm curious as your thoughts to how changes in zoning and land use policies affect property valuations and development opportunities.
Again, a lot of factors go into it, but I do know that they're working very hard to on that plan to increase development. And so as far as development goes, I am hoping all of that impact is positive, right? We've already talked about how use changes and things like that, but this is a little bit different than that per se. Again, it's all reflected in the sales, and so I can't say exactly what's going to happen.
Now, there could be patches of currently vacant land that now, as a result of this plan, will open up and then become a development opportunity. And then there's absolutely an interaction with your office, right? In terms of change of use and valuation.
Yes.
Right. And what ultimately ends up in our coffers.
Right. Yes. And it can be a positive change in use or a negative. Because like I said, we've already touched on affordable housing. You know, while my industrial market is booming right now.
Right.
So how they change these zonings will all depend. You know, we got a need here for housing. We've got a need over here for industrial, you know, and so how, I know they're working very carefully on it, how they orchestrate those changes and navigate all of that is definitely gonna have an impact. And yes, especially in the multifamily market, you know, if they take some and rezone stuff to include more multifamily, well, that does a lot to inventory. And we know, as you know, we work on saturation and we get more units out there, then we've got more competition. The more competition we have, the prices of rent start to go down, and that definitely has an effect on value because rent is part of that income analysis that I do, and that drives that net operating, which, so it's all connected. But again, I won't know necessarily the impact it has on the value until those changes are made. But we do, that being said, we stay very much on top of it. My business services team works directly with development services and with the other powers that be at Pima County to make sure that we in the office are on top of that. We know what's going on so that we can make those educated decisions as to how high we're raising a value or how low we're raising a value based on some of these things that are happening out there in the community.
Right, keeping a pulse.
Yeah, definitely.
Right,
yes.
Because it's both looking back and doing your best to project what is coming, anticipating, right, especially from a market perspective.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
That's what I'm
That's reasonable.
Given how much policy's happening in the land use and housing space right now, you earlier when you mentioned you're capable of doing 5-year projections, like how do you do that right now with
so many moving parts?
There's a ton, right?
Well, it, as an appraiser, we're historians again. It is a little bit of where some of my real estate background helps a lot. And having somebody in there that is doing nothing but on the spot market research to try to see these trends as they're happening, because projections are one of those places where we do have the advantage of doing them in real time versus being 2 years behind the, with our data. And so those projections, we can look at how we have like properties valued to get our benchmark as to if you were to build this today, of course, because of for equity reasons and things like that, it's going to be valued like those other like properties, right? Because I'm not going to be like, oh, well, yeah, but today's market's showing me that it's valued,
Yeah.
and we're going to keep that equity in line. And so that's our starting point. And remember, when something is born or something is created, we set that limited at that time. So that's where we have the advantage, and that's where we're able to do those projections. Because the full cash value, we will do a conservative and an aggressive full cash value, where we look at the market and we're able to adjust both of those to kind of take in some of those market factors that we're seeing. But then that limited value can still only increase 5%. Right.
By state law.
By state law. And right now, because we're in such a stable market, now if the market were to crash, and believe me, there's disclaimers all over these projections, okay? If it crashes tomorrow, obviously this could change.
Will be revisited.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But based on everything we're seeing today, this is what the full cash value should do, and either going to increase 3% or 5%.
I keep forgetting about the cap.
And that limited value is really the key here.
It's the linchpin.
Yes.
Right. And it's really what brings predictability within other things that can be so unpredictable.
Right.
It really is meant as a stabilizer.
Yes.
And as a way to shield the consumer from especially huge fluctuations, right? Because in states where they don't exist, right, and we've read all kinds of articles about it, all of a sudden their property valuation and their tax bill is something they can't pay.
Right. Yeah.
And so then you have a whole other series of situations to address. And in fact, in your office, you do have programs that people can take advantage of in the event that they can't pay their tax bill, right? Or they've had a change in circumstance. Walk us through some of those programs.
Yeah, it is. The limited value really stabilizes taxes a lot, to an extent. I mean, in an up market, you can expect that increase. In a down market, it can never exceed that full cash value. So if it falls far enough, it's going to push that down. So that is really that safety net as far as your average property owner, right? Now, we live in a community that is very diversified and mixed as far as age demographics, as far as incomes, as far as everything, right? And so Arizona has always been really, really good about making sure that we have programs out there. And a lot of people don't know that about Arizona, right? Yeah. I'm from Minnesota. That's the name of the game up there, right? Everybody knows Minnesota. Yeah, it's not even a thought. It's just, I have this problem. Where's the program? Right? In Arizona, it's not always been the case. It's always, kind of a bootstrap place, I've noticed. But we do have these programs, and no other assessor has ever thought it's really important to push this information out there, right?
And that's one of the ways we can help, right? Our industry can help communicate, right?
Yes.
To our colleagues, and certainly then our clients, should they find themselves in a situation like this.
Yeah, put the service back in public service, right? And so we have a lot of, I'm gonna break the barrier here, pamphlets and programs. Come see me.
Or check out the website.
Right, check out the website. We have senior valuation. We have disabled veterans. We have tons of these. We have senior freeze. We have widowers exemptions. We have a lot of valuation relief programs for the community, all designed to help ease that property tax burden. Arizona also has a statute out there that says there's no such thing as zero property taxes on any property.
Right.
So these are valuation relief programs.
And there's time limitations, and there's criteria.
Exactly,
right?
definitely. And it is one of the things I am very passionate about, is exemptions, as you know, which thank you for bringing it up, because you knew I was gonna regardless. It's all on the website, right? But a lot of people that utilize these services, I try to gear everything towards my parents, right?
Mhm.
Are my parents going to
They're
know
not
about?
necessarily
they're-
online.
They're not going to that website, right? And so we go to the home shows, we go everywhere, but all of this information's on the website. But the other thing is every single person that calls my office, we bring this up. It's part of the, you know.
So you just proactively offer it,
Definitely,
so that people don't have to think about it, or
Do
because sometimes
you-
there can also be shame attached to asking for help, right?
Right.
They're embarrassed or
Definitely.
unsure how the question might be received.
Yeah, and I never want somebody. It's much easier for me to get you into this program ahead of time than it is to have you not pay your taxes because you can't afford them.
Right, and then have a completely different situation.
Right,
you have to
and then
address.
I'm trying to help you with a lien.
Yes.
That one is really, really, really difficult for me to address. Almost, I'll be honest with you, almost impossible, right? Because what it's gotten to that far, you know, it's like that. It's like the dentist. Nobody wants to go to the dentist. I don't want to talk to my dentist. But if you wait, well, okay, you're going to get a whole new set of teeth, and it's going to be a lot, you know. So whenever somebody calls our office in any kind of distress or stress, or they even make the comment, you know, you're taxing me out of my home, which I'm not, because I'm just doing values. But you know, I'm being taxed out of my home. I take that very seriously, and our first response to that is, we need to see if you qualify for any program. So tell me a little bit about your situation. You know, tell me about your life. Tell me, you know, we always ask anybody, you know,
if circumstances change.
Yes, you or your spouse, were you in the military? You know, we ask some very, very safe questions to try to get some information to see if you qualify for these programs, right? Because they can make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
Senior freeze is amazing. So if you are over the age of 65 and you meet the other qualifications, it basically freezes your limited value, which is what all your taxes are calculated off of. So if I can freeze that limited value, at least I know that is not increasing 5% on you every single year. Now, I can't freeze those taxes. Property tax rate is the Board of Supervisors, not me, okay? And they do what they've got to do to cover that budget and to make sure those community services continue to happen. It's very important. But at least I know your limited value is not going to go up. And so it can do a lot to help there. And we can piggyback one program off of another.
I was going to ask, they're stackable.
They're very stackable.
So you could be a disabled veteran who's a widower and get a senior freeze.
Yes.
For example.
Yep.
And so they're not mutually exclusive.
Nope, and they're not, exactly. And the other thing is much like, let's say, a 55 community where you have one of the spouses
property owners.
Or property owners, sorry. One of the property owners has to be 55 or older, right? Well, that's the same with a lot of these programs. If you have one person that's a senior,
then the property qualifies.
Well,
one property owner?
A portion of the property will qualify, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can still do something, though, is what I'm,
the point.
That's the point,
Yeah.
Right. And they're actually working on it the assessors across the state are constantly working to try to make these programs better. The Veterans program is something that I, along with all of my assessor colleagues, worked on. We didn't have a designated veterans valuation relief exemption that was workable or usable in the past. So we got that done a couple of years ago. So we got the veterans program, but we're still trying to make that better for our vets. Vets are very important to me. And our the senior freeze program, we're trying to get it because right now you have to re-qualify every couple of years. We're trying to
streamline it.
We're trying to get rid of that requirement so that it is easier because again, I'm one of those people where I don't believe that should be the burden of the taxpayer or any member of our community to intuitively know, right, about the programs that are available or intuitively know that they
how to take advantage of them.
Should have to do something, right? And so this requirement that you have to reapply every 2 years, first of all, not intuitive. Second of all, we're dealing with it with the elderly community and everything that goes along with being elderly. You know, I'm lucky if I remember what I ate for dinner last night, let alone that I have to reapply for this every 2-3 years. And there's definite repercussions, negative repercussions to those that fall off that program because they did not reapply.
Right.
And all of the assessors recognize this. And so we're working very hard to, yes, make these programs more user-friendly, make these programs more advantageous and easier to qualify for.
And easier to renew.
Easier to renew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of that is really, really important to us. This is all on my website, but that is another thing. I will never look at you and say, and you will never call my office and say, I want to know more about the Senior Freeze program. That's great. Check out the website. No. I say, look at the website, but then call my office or just call my office. You know what I mean? Because I want to make sure you're talking to a person that can answer all of your questions, because you might read that website and think, oh, I don't qualify for that based on something that you're not interpreting correctly or something like that. And I'm not saying that you're going to call my office and magically qualify for it. But what I'm saying is you're going to call my office and talk to a person that can make sure you're interpreting it correctly. Because I've had a lot of people that have interpreted it wrong and we're like, I never thought I didn't think I qualified. And they've
self-selected out as opposed to talking to someone who can make the determination. So then the best suggestion for our industry and our members is to not only check out your website, but call your office and or have their clients call your office to understand what programs they might qualify for.
Exactly.
Including one of the ones that you also won an award for is your rapid response program.
Yeah.
And that's another one where you actively look for the information about properties that have been damaged in a way, either through fire or a car crashes through the house, right? Some kind of unanticipated disaster. And then the implication that there can be to either use, valuation, right? So
the
rapid
response program. That is something that one of my brainchildren, when I was running for office. Back when I started in the assessor's office in 2008, I was a field appraiser. I started pretty much entry level on the ground. And one of my areas was Mount Lemmon. Okay. I was the Minnesota girl and they were like, oh, you're used to this type of construction. You know, you go up there and get everything onto the roll, because we had heard from the fire department, hey, because remember, all of their funds are connected to property tax. If something's not on the roll, that property tax isn't collected. A, the people that are on the roll are paying more, and B, services are hurt, right? And so they were like, you don't have everything on there. So they sent me up there and I'm like, all right, great. So I get up there, and now mind you, the Aspen fire was in 2003. We lost over 350 cabins in that Aspen fire. Okay. I'm now going up there in 2008.
5 years later.
5 years later, right? Yeah. Okay, that 5 years becomes very important, because when I was up there, not only were things not on the roll, there were things on the roll that weren't there anymore.
Oh, geez.
They had burnt down in the fire and never got removed from the roll. So I came back to the office and I'm like, hey, you know.
By the way.
Yeah. We have cabins that are listed that shouldn't be listed, that I am, of course, going to remove from the rolls now, but they've been on the rolls for the last 5 years. Yep. Not our responsibility to take these off right away. It's if we don't, I shouldn't say it's not our responsibility to take them off right away. It is our responsibility once we find it. However, we don't actively go look for them.
Sure.
It is the homeowner's responsibility to call the office and let us know that there was a fire. And I was like, no, that's not right.
Like, you're already in crisis, right? You've already been devastated in one way.
Yeah. So this really was a hard one for me to wrap my mind around. And so fast forward to 2017, and I'm running for assessor's office again, and the Bighorn fire. And I remember I live up in Catalina, and I'm looking behind me at the mountain, staring at this awesome fire,
blaze.
and I just and it is, and when I say awesome, it's just because it's awe-inspiring. It's and I'm like, oh no, here we go again. And this time, this is potentially my watch, and now I get to make the decisions on how this is handled. And so while I'm running for office and COVID hits and all of this good fun stuff, I'm like developing this rapid response program in my head, and how is this going to work, and how are we going to do this? Because my opinion is the last thing any property owner needs to be thinking about when they're undergoing a tragedy such as a fire, or like you said, a car driving through their property or something like that, is, oh gee, I think I should call the assessor's office and make sure this is taken off the roll.
First on my list.
Yeah, and it's not their responsibility. I'm the elected official. They put me in this seat to watch out for them, and so that's what I did. I got in there, and the first thing I did was, we are going to put rapid response in place. And so we started calling all the fire departments, and we partnered with them. Flood control partnered with them. I started just every agency that deals with any type of disaster, right? And we get a report into our office now on a periodic basis. Don't quote me, I think it's weekly, maybe daily, but anyways, we get these reports, and what we do is we go through these reports, and I proactively send a team from my office out there. They do pictures, they analyze the damage and determine if it has an impact on the value, and if it does, we reach out to the homeowner and we make those adjustments that are necessary. We make them for the current year, because this is when they're happening, and we walk them through that process, because it's a different process, and then we change the role going forward so that
it can account
exactly
for that situation.
Yes. Yeah. And yes, that's my it is my baby, and I handed it over to my business services division. They kind of lead it, and they've taken it to even further
new levels.
Yeah. So my team's pretty amazing about doing that. But yeah, so again, this is also being nationally recognized by NACO this year. I have a couple things in there. My business services department is also being nationally recognized. It's a big year for us.
Well, kudos.
So,
congratulations.
Yeah, it's like I got to come up with
more,
right? Yeah, because it's like I can't peak in my fifth year.
Well,
so
this is motivation,
right?
Then, to continue growing.
So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
Truly helpful information. We have some of your brochures in the association office. Feel free to give us more so that we can make sure that our members have them and can share them with their clients. But also make sure to check out the assessor's website, which is it Pima Assessor?
Assessor.pima.gov.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just Pima.gov.
Yeah, Pima.gov. Google it, right?
Yeah.
And thank you for checking out this latest episode. Be well, take good care, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Super informative.
Yes.
Yay. That was fun.
Right?
So I had a question that I thought I should ask off the record.
I'll leave these here for you.